Hey, welcome back to another video feature of the Immersive Worlds Handbook. Today I'm in London at Mailrail, which is actually part of the Postal Museum. So I want to take you on a tour of some of the exhibition space just behind me, and also I'll take you on Mailrail, which is the interactive ride, which is the closest thing to a theme park ride maybe you'll see in a museum. So let's take the tour. Okay, so we will start the tour of Mailrail, part of my visit to the Postal Museum in 2018. I was very excited to visit the museum, and I heard quite a bit about this new attraction, and I wanted to check it out. And as I've said in my video on the Postal Museum, it's not very typical to think of the postal industry and its history as part of an exciting tourist attraction, but indeed they have succeeded in making it exactly that. So let me jump back to some on-site video I shot to explain a little more about this innovative attraction. Alright, so we're just getting ready to start the Mailrail here. As you can see, we're inside getting ready to go. And so as I take you through the attraction, I will try to narrate a little bit, making an attempt not to get on top of the audio that you'll hear from the attraction itself. So let's take a look on the ride.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Mailrail. If I could just ask you not to lean against the doors or the canopies, as they do have sensors on them that will stop the train. Have a nice ride.
Hello and welcome to Mailrail. You're about to explore some of London's hidden underground postal railway. I'm Andy, your guide today, and I'm joined by Ray Middlesworth. Hi, Ray.
Hi. I worked here as an engineer for 27 years, keeping the trains running. But not just any old trains. This unique narrow gauge railway was designed to carry mail, not people. So if you're feeling a little cramped, that's why. And although we have a driver today, the original mail trains were driverless.
It was a huge network of automated electric trains running right under central London, carrying mail between main railway stations and sorting offices much faster than along the congested streets above our heads. And it's amazing to think construction of the railway began as far back as 1914, with the tunnels dug by hand. Work was put on hold during the First World War, but when the railway finally opened in 1927, it cut the journey time across London from a few hours to just 30 minutes.
It was an engineering marvel. Mailrail ran almost non-stop, night and day, for over 75 years until 2003.
As we explore, we'll be going back in time to see tunnels, loading platforms, and a few surprises. We'll be at our first stop in a few minutes. Did you spot some sandbags just then? Ray, could you tell us about that? Sandbags on the line.
That's called the sand drag. There's a pile of sand on the track designed to stop runaway trains. If they run down that hill we've just come down, that will catch them.
The platform you're about to see looks much as it did on the day it shut down in 2003. Ray, can you describe it for us?
When Mailrail was running, this platform would be a hive of activity. You'd see people playing darts between the trains arriving, guys conversing back and forth, wheeling work up and down. It was a noisy and lively place to work.
Ray's going to tell you more about life working on the railway as we take a trip down memory lane through the many decades of Mailrail.
And as we're going through the attraction, I'm trying to put up on the screen some tidbits that add to your understanding of the Mailrail attraction as we look at more of the experience.
We're under Mount Pleasant sorting office, heading east to Whitechapel. It was hard work down here, but we all thought we were part of something important. There was enormous team spirit. We seemed to get ourselves in the news a lot in the 90s. It didn't hurt that Bruce Willis made a film down here called Hudson Hawk. the 80s, we had our 60th anniversary. Along with that, we had a new brand and finally some new trains. I'll tell you two things that sum up the 70s. Postcodes made life a lot easier, and strikes made life not so easy. The swinging 60s. Those World Cup stamps sold out after England won. There were a few celebrations down here that summer. In the 50s, air travel became much more common, and so did airmail, and that meant even more of it travelled along mail rail. The railway was bombed several times. This station suffered the most damage when it was hit in 1943. Amazingly, the railway was back up and running the very next day. That reflected how vital the railway had become.
So as you can tell, there's quite a bit to this attraction as you experience it as a guest. I'm putting up on the screen here an original map, and you can certainly research a little bit more about how this train system worked. I think it's really innovative how they've done this attraction with a lot of those audiovisual elements that you've been experiencing here on my video. And Attractions Management has written quite a bit about Mail Rail over the years, going back to 2014 when there was discussion of plans to open this attraction, which I think has turned out to be quite popular. And then as you can see here, schematics, they did an article on the Postal Museum itself, which again I encourage you to check out that video I've done on that attraction as well. And then here's an announcement of the fact that it opened in 2017. So for me, as I've talked about in this video, and as you can probably experience, I think it's really innovative to think about how they've made the postal experience attractive to us, interesting and entertaining.
The tunnel off to the left leads to Liverpool Street Station, where mail was transferred to the main railway network. Further down that tunnel, it looks like a maintenance crew is checking the flood barriers.
This side's good. What's that like?
Big heavy steel doors that close it off.
During the railway's construction, 10 men scrambled to safety when the nearby River Fleet broke into where they were digging. The barriers here were installed later, after the war, but they'd never had to be used.
Ray, there's something else here that people might be interested in. Can you tell us about that?
When we move off just up ahead, look down towards the track. You might catch a glimpse of the train graveyard where disused trains are stored. I must have worked on all of them at some time or other.
And in case you're curious, Attractions Management did do a pretty extensive feature on Mail Rail and the Postal Museum, so I definitely encourage you to read their take on what they liked about this particular attraction in London. And incidentally, I should mention in that same issue, you could read my piece with Joel Beckerman and Gordon Grice on Making Sense, which was focused on sensory design and attractions, not unlike this particular one we're checking out. To me, what's exciting about Mail Rail is the fact that you're actually riding in the same place, essentially on some of the same types of trains. They've been modified and modernized that were used in the past. So it has a sense of history that you're experiencing in person. And again, I encourage you to check out my video on the Postal Museum itself so you can get a little more sensibility about how the Mail Rail operates in tandem with this innovative Postal Museum in London.
Don't worry everybody. Just a power cut. Ray, can you explain?
Power cuts happen from time to time when the railway was operational. We could draw power from the next station along to keep everything running. And of course, us guys in the engineering teams always kept the trains and track in good order.
Okay, on we go.
So the ride in its entirety takes about 20 minutes, so it's definitely a long experience. I think it's well worth the admission price. And I'm giving you a few more facts here, and indeed, I just mentioned that fact, and you get it up on the screen as a graphic. But I think what's cool about this ride is the fact that they intersperse the experience of riding the train and then seeing these interesting projections, which often have a very historical element to them. And in fact, let's check out another one as we experience it on the ride.
Now, let's go a bit further back to the early days in the 1930s. Then there was no email, texting, or instant messaging. Whatever the message, it was sent through the post. So there was a lot of mail to move. Trainloads of mail arrived at every station, every few minutes, with less than 60 seconds to unload and reload. Let's follow a few of those letters. This is the Colonel. He's writing to the famous poet W.H. Auden at the GPO Film Unit. This is Kathleen. She's keeping in touch with her sweetheart in the Navy. And this is Mary. Her letter is very special because it's going to a princess.
Darling bird, that navy is keeping you away from me for far too long, and everyone says the war's coming. I do hope they're wrong.
Dear Mr. Alden, I think I've got to express my admiration for your work on a recent film about the night mail postal train.
Dear Princess Elizabeth, I am sending you a birthday card because my birthday is on the same day. I hope you will enjoy living in Buckingham Palace. I wish my dad was a king like yours. Does he rose around all the time? I hope this gets to you in time for your birthday. I suppose you get lots of letters every day. Please read this one. Yours sincerely, Mary Reardon, age 11.
And forward to an introduction with keen interest. Keep up the good work. Yours sincerely, Colonel Arthur Bingley Crouch, retired.
Must go now, or I shall be late for work. Those frocks won't sell themselves. Take good care of yourself, Bert, my love. Kisses, your sweetheart, Kathleen.
So those 3 letters all got delivered quickly and safely. And so did the other 4 million which travelled along mail rail each and every day.
You could say that mail rail's the beating heart of the British postal system.
Okay, and so you just saw the last of mini projections, and this section of mail rail increases speed a little bit. I'm guessing pretty close to 7 miles per hour again. Back in the day, the maximum speed was actually quite a bit more. doesn't make sense to obviously put the guests through that kind of speed. This is definitely a ride, I think, that tends more towards the visuals and the projections and less on the thrill, but it still is great because you're in these same tunnels that were used in the historic period in which this was in operation. And as I've said earlier, I think the projections and the video screens, some of those are very innovative and I think are examples of how such attractions like this that could have a historical focus or that have natural walls that can be modified for projections and video visualizations, it really reminds us of how you can do some innovative technological things and still keep true to the history, to what you're trying to convey in terms of the educational aspects of it, while maintaining some of that experiential technology and elements like using those projections that does give the sense of being immersed, gives the guest a sense of being immersed in an interesting experience. So for me, it was well worth the visit. I hope you'll get an opportunity to check out both Mail Rail and the Postal Museum, as I mentioned here, has received really positive coverage in the press all over the world, and I think it's well worth your time if you get a chance to visit. It's very quirky in terms of its subject and the context, but I think it is definitely something that has shown us a pathway forward in terms of how to innovate in terms of attractions that maybe deal with unconventional subjects like the postal history.
I hope you've enjoyed your tour of London's hidden postal railway. It was unique, and I love to be part of the great team keeping the railway running.
We hope you'll enjoy exploring the rest of the exhibit.
All right, so we're just leaving Mail Rail, the experience and exhibition, and then I'll take you now to the Postal Museum up here, and I discovered by the very knowledgeable guide inside that the particular mail sorting section here. Royal Mail here is the largest sorting station in all of London, so kind of interesting. Hope you enjoyed the video feature today here at Mail Rail in London, and please come back for additional video features of the Immersive Worlds Handbook.